to this nation, Nigeria. We're all Nigerians, and this is the only country we have. Yes, the president has done his broadcast. You heard from all the leaders. You heard from the governors, some senators, some House of Representatives members, some traditional rulers. Indeed, everyone that considers himself or herself a leader had a broadcast yesterday, even in the various families. But the question to you is, how are you considering and thinking to contribute your own quota to building or rebuilding Nigeria? Something happened coming out to work yesterday and today, and that thought kept coming up. So it happened again this morning, and it just brought it back up again, Buki, how we get to the traffic light and you're looking, can I just go? Nobody's moving. So meanwhile, the light is red. And then you're wondering, should I go? Should I wait? Should I go? Should I wait? The road is free. I mean, I can just go ahead. I see quite a number of people do that. But when you do that, what do you say of yourself? Do you blame the leadership for that place where you find yourself? Do you blame the leadership for jumping the red light? Or do you blame somebody else? Or blame the fact that you're running late, that's why you need to jump a red light? There is leadership. So while we celebrate Nigeria's independence and look to those we have elected in different positions to lead us, or those we look to as traditional rulers to lead us, the question is, how are you leading in your own little way? How much of a good example are you obeying the laws that are there? And how much of a good example are you to those that are coming behind, before you even begin to blame somebody else for what they are doing or not doing? Hola?
Reflect on our national values in this country. A very good time to reflect on how far we've come and the progress that we've made so far. A very good time to reflect on our leadership options. A very good time to reflect on mistakes of the past and how we're to move forward. A very good time to reflect, yet indeed, upon our economy and the choices that we've made so far, and of course the approaches of the government to tackling some of the challenges that we're currently faced with. Indeed, the speech, the Independence Anniversary speech of the president, was a mixed bag yesterday with a lot of, downsides to it, but we choose to reflect on the positives this morning with what we would call wage award coming in at 25,000 naira for the next 6 months. Of course, the provision of compressed natural gas buses, this time around, subsidy for transportation, and how soon that will be coming in, the component of businesses and entrepreneurship in that as well, and of course the provision of all the other options that the government is making, just to ease the removal of the impact of fuel subsidy on Nigerians, how soon that will come, and what was missing in this speech. Of course, we'll be asking all of those questions on behalf of, Nigerians this morning. But you started off by talking about patriotism, and in addition to that, it's a time also for Nigerians, to resolve to contribute their own quota, to national development, stop for once and reflect on what you're doing, just to make things a little better, for your colleagues, and to improve, on the progress that we're all trying to make as Nigerians. You talked about, traffic lights. There are other ways, that Nigerians can contribute to nation building on their own. Their service in their different places of work, for those of us who are entrepreneurs, who contribute to the entrepreneurial growth, of others. What quota do we are putting? How efficient is our service? How dedicated are we? For those who are, entrepreneurs on their own, who provide some form of service or the other, how reliable are they? What value do they bring? Do they increase their quality of service before they increase on price? And, what are the standards that that they put in, for those services that they offer? We could even talk about the sale of petroleum, for instance, which, is pivotal to the growth of the economy in every other area. We talk now and again, about those who take advantage of petrol scarcity, those who sell at a higher price once the price has been increased without necessarily exhausting their own stock, so to speak, and those who would put taxes on this product just because Nigerians are desperate and they will get it at any price. These are the things that we should reflect on as Nigerians. We should do as we would be done by. We should think about the comfort of the other person, before we think about ours. And of course, think about what impact that attitude would have on us, before we do that. We could even talk about service delivery in ministries and parastatals. What's the attitude of public servants, of civil servants, when they deliver their service? How soon do they resume? Would they rather be induced before they carry on their service? As we recite the national anthem and make the national pledge today and every other day, we should recommit ourselves to those values and, not just let them slip off the lips, without walking the talk. When we, contribute our own quota, when we start with ourselves, I believe that the progress, will coalesce into something meaningful for Nigerians, and then we can begin to scrutinize our leadership. Nyota.
Indeed, we need to look at how all of us are part of this whole team called Nigeria. It's citizens, leaders, Team Nigeria. So what we do tells a great deal about that. But we'll take a moment and return, or we could just go on straight to look at what some of the dailies are saying in today's papers, and starting out with the Vanguard newspaper. It starts out there, 24 hours to nationwide strike. That's what the Vanguard is leading with. FG's meeting with NLC, TUC ends in deadlock. Labour rejects government offers. Meeting reconvenes today. Orders state councils affiliates to ensure total compliance. Sets up zonal strike coordinating committees. FG offers 25,000 wage award across board. This is what the Vanguard newspaper is leading with. The details continue on page 5. You see a picture of the president and vice president, the president of the Senate, the speaker of the House of Representatives, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, the minister of the FCT, the Chief of Defense Staff, I believe, and all of them taking a picture with their anniversary cake. Interestingly, a couple of them are not smiling. I wonder why. The Chief of Defense Staff, the FCT Minister, and the President's kind of looking down, but they're not smiling, while the others are smiling. Anyway, but that's a picture you see there up above the nameplate. Weekend moves against Okada operations. Open grazing in Abuja. Check page 8. And then the story about the independence of Nigeria at 63. Governors can, others preach peace. Say country's challenges surmountable. And this other story that happened outside the shores of Nigeria. U.S. court orders CSU, as a Chicago State University, to release Tinubu's academic records to Atiku. That story is on page 9. It's among some of the things that happened yesterday. Then below here, just at the bottom of the page, you have these other pockets of stories, but this one should make some interesting ones. Buhari never regretted his decisions as president, coming from his spokesperson, Garba Shehu. Then this one would interest builders. Bua reduces cement price to 3,500 per bag. Is that good news or is that good news? Would the other components, cost of the other components in building a house, come down as well in cost? Oh, well done, Bua. Page 13 will give you more details. And some good news for Rivers United. They won their game at the CAF Confederation Cup. They beat Etoile Filante by 2-0. And that's it from the Vanguard.
And up next this morning is This Nigeria newspaper, which leads with, federal government negotiation with Labour and the outcome, especially following the president's speech yesterday. Looks like there was an update on 25,000 naira. Listen to this. FG Labour agree on 35,000 naira wage increment for all workers. President says gesture meant to cushion effect of fuel price hike. NLC, TUC reconvene to consider FG's offer, may suspend planned nationwide strike, which was, scheduled to commence tomorrow initially. Will this also be for the next 6 months, as contained in the president's speech from yesterday when he announced the wage award to be 25,000 naira over the next 6 months? And the reason for that being, according to his speech, was to, curtail inflation. Of course, perhaps in the coming days we'll get clarity. Right under that, there's this one. Serap sues 36 governors over unaccounted 72 billion naira subsidy palliative. Yes, you heard it right. Sues 36 governors over an accounted 72 billion naira subsidy palliative. Of course, we'll have clarity also on this one in the coming days, particularly since the announcement of 5 billion naira to state governors for, subsidy palliative to Nigerians, particularly vulnerable Nigerians. And, also following the removal of fuel subsidies, state governors have said that, there have been increased allocation to states from FAC. So where's all of that going to? Where is the accountability? I guess those are the questions that Serap is asking this morning. How is it being spent? Of course, there are other stories from the front page of This Nigeria this morning. Under that, further down, there's this of great concern. Scores feared killed in tragic tanker explosion in Ologbo Koko axis of Benin Warri Road. That's a sad one. Very, very worrying. Above the nameplates, there's also something from the FCT. Wike promises to deliver some FCT road projects in 8 months. It's a page 7 read, just in case you're interested in following up on this. That's it from the front page of This Nigeria, this newspaper this morning.
Well, the Guardian newspaper has that story again about the 35,000 naira wage top-up. FG dangles 35,000 naira wage top-up. Others as Labour revisits decision. Page 6. And you see the pictures of those that are having this conversation. The President, the Minister of Labour and Productivity, the NLC President, and the TUC President. But below that, got some other stories. Mixed reactions trail Tinubu's anniversary speech, post-subsidy measures. Details of that you find on page 6. EB Nigeria ended yesterday and said the crown goes to Lokoja as Leboya, bags 120 million grand prize. On page 2, you find that casualization, concerns over exploitation, high demand for cheap labor. That's an analysis article on page 4. But this one's coming from that green box there on your screen. It's coming from the First Lady. My husband, not magician. My husband, not magician, says Oluremi at Adeleke. Others exhort Nigerians. Get to page 3 to get more details of that. And this, the Justice Minister, that story broke yesterday, but apparently it's not just breaking yesterday. It's a build-up from a story that had been in the media space for a while. But the Justice Minister is countering that report, says distances FG from 50 billion naira plea bargain with MFLA. Details of that you find on page 3. But this picture here speaks a lot to what the government's trying to do as regards gas supply. The picture of the first license for bulk gas, wholesale gas supply issued by the NMDPRA. That's the picture you see there. The Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Gas, Ekpe Ikpo, the MD of the Midstream Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, Farouk Ahmed. Anyway, that's a picture you find there. And that's it from the Guardian newspaper.
And up next is the Nigerian News Direct, and I'm quite spoiled for choice this morning from the front page of the News Direct on what to bring to you. A mixed bag also, but let's start with, the updates from the President's Independence Anniversary speech this morning. October 3 strike, FG's meeting with organized labor hits deadlock. Tinubu reviews workers' wages award to 35,000 naira as labor rejects 25,000 naira 6-month allowance for government workers. Labor to consider FG's offer. That's according to the information minister. It's a page 23 read, just in case you're interested in a follow-up this morning. And right there on the front pages, you see the frontline leaders of the nation, from the president to his vice, the Senate president, the speaker, and the CJN this morning, cutting the national cake in what is the first independence anniversary in the life of this administration. Did you get to cut a cake? Just in case you didn't get to cut a cake, of course, you can still celebrate this morning. There's every reason to celebrate as long as you're alive. There's always hope for what is to come in the future. And under that, there are other stories from the front pages, especially from the President's Independence Day speech. There's also this one, Tinubu okay's expansion of cash transfer programs to 15 million households. 15 million households. So it's been increased from 10 million to 15 million. And I guess it's still the same amount, 5,000 naira or 8,000 naira. But I recall that there wasn't quite a consensus from the governors following the outcome of one of the NEC meetings, I believe. There wasn't quite a consensus. The governors were saying that it depends on the capacity of each state to pay. So that's cheery to note, 15 million households. From Edo State, this comes subsidy palliative. Edo to review 40,000 naira minimum wage award. That's it, yes. 40,000 naira minimum wage award. Wow, looks like Edo workers, will be having a very good 63rd independence anniversary. That's besides a number of other programs that the state government has put in place. There's also the free bus initiative, of course, that we had reported in the past. Right beside that one, we have no 50 billion naira plea bargain agreement with Emefiele that's ascribed to the Attorney General of the Federation. A lot of stories had been on about a soft landing being made for the suspended CBN governor, but the federal government has debunked those stories now in what the Nigerian News Direct is reporting. And of course, we've reported the last story at the bottom strip of News Direct earlier about Serap demanding accountability over 72 billion naira palliative. That's it from the front page of the Nigerian News Direct.
And what I have here is the Abuja Inquirer. Abuja Inquirer leads with a matter that concerns the FCTA Treasury. Succession crisis rocks FCTA Treasury. Permanent Secretary ignores most senior professional. Staffers kick. There was that directive from the Minister of the FCTA about those that need to go. But on the other side is also the fact that to get to a certain age in the civil service, you have to go. Maybe it's time to go, Permanent Secretary. But hey, says ignores senior professional. But that's a fun story. That's what the Abuja Inquirer is leading with. Maybe you just see that quickly there. That's what it is. Above the nameplate, you have this on Atiku upbit as U.S. court orders Chicago University to release Tinubu's academic record. Continues on page 3. Area Council teacher strike. Committee to submit report next week. Apparently, area council teachers have been on strike for a while in the Federal Capital Territory. Hopefully that will be resolved real quick and schools have resumed. this matter is resolved really quickly before the NLC's matter also resolved. Wike targets Okada passengers to enforce ban. Page 6. And Tinubu makes U-turn, approves 35,000 for FG workers. That's how the Abuja Inquirer has captioned it. Details of it you find on page 12. And that story about the plea bargain with Emefiele, says the AGF says is not there, is on page 14. And again, another picture of the celebration of Nigeria 63, this time from the Ecumenical Center yesterday. That's it from the Abuja Inquirer.
And up next is the Daily Independent this morning, which leads with something that's been of great concern to the administration and indeed the generality of Nigerians. Naira value drops 161,000, I believe, 266% in 50 years as analysts seek concerted efforts to stop further depreciation. Well, that's quite a number. More than 1,000% depreciation in value over the last 50 years. Just in case you're interested in the propositions of the analysts, it's on the inside pages, page 29 to be precise. Of course, many questions are being asked, many solutions have been put forward in the last few weeks in the life of this administration. And some have even said, look, why not even exit the highest denomination being 1,000 naira, and let's have the highest denomination to be 100 naira and withdraw all of the old currencies from the bank. So you take away the illusion, and then we'll be back at perhaps 100 naira to $1. Well, I wonder the implications that will have, but it certainly sounds, worth considering. There are other stories, of course, some that have been brought to you earlier on. There's this one at the bottom strip for the leaders to reflect on, and indeed every other Nigerian. Insecurity, decayed infrastructure, rising debt dog Nigeria at 63. Add to that the currency concern. At the bottom strip also, beside the one at the bottom strip, to the left hand of the paper, Nigeria at 63, PANDEF, Middle Belt Forum, Ohaneze reiterate call for restructuring. That's a page 6 read. Has a conversation started on the approach to governance? Of course, we'll find out in the coming days if the momentum on this call will be sustained. And of course, it's cheery to note that BUAS has cut the price of cement to 3,500 naira per bag. So that's some relief for the building industry in Nigeria. That's a page 6 read as well, as we leave it there for the Daily Independent newspaper this morning.
The Daily Times, talking about dailies here, Daily Times has some very interesting stories on the front page that they continue inside, and they all are tied to the 1st October of 1960. So see this. My Times with the late Sardauna of Sokoto. His driver spoke, he had an exclusive with Daily Times. So the driver of the late Sardauna of Sokoto has come out to speak about his times with the late Sardauna. It continues on page 9. Then at the bottom of the page, I told you I'm going to focus on these stories that had to do with the independence. Unlike now, my husband, a rep for 10 years without own house. Unlike now, my husband, a rep for 10 years without own house. Wife of independent era lawmaker. That story is on page 5. You need to find out who is that lawmaker. For 10 years, a House of Representatives member does not own or did not own a house. So page 5 will give you more details of that story. Then a journalist that witnessed October 1, 1960 says, Nigerians were better off under British rule. Now there will be a lot of argument about that one. So go to page 5 also to read more on that story. And that's it from the Daily Times, and indeed a look at what some of the dailies are saying. We'll be back in a moment to pick up our conversations. Don't go away.
Dear compatriots,
in a series of many firsts since assuming office as President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, President Bola Tinubu released his thoughts on Nigeria's 63rd independence anniversary, commencing with appreciation for the nation's founding fathers.
Let us commend our founding fathers and mothers. Without them, there would have been no modern Nigeria. From the fading embers of colonialism, their activism, dedication, and leadership gave life to the belief in Nigeria as a sovereign and independent nation.
In his 15 minutes nationwide broadcast, the president says he's unwavering in his resolve to lay a solid foundation.
Those who sought to perpetuate the fuel subsidy and broken foreign exchange policies are people who will build their family mansion in the middle of a swamp. I am different. I'm not a man to erect our national home on a foundation of mud. To endure, our home must be constructed on safe and pleasant ground.
Perhaps to assuage the agitations by organized labor, the president announces a 6-month provisional wage increment, among others.
Based upon our talks with labor, business, and other stakeholders, we are introducing a provisional wage award increment to enhance the federal minimum wage without causing undue inflation. For the next 6 months, the average low-grade worker shall receive an additional 25,000 naira per month. The new CNG conversion schemes will start coming in very soon, as all hands are on deck to fast-track the usual lengthy procurement process. We are also setting up training facilities and workshops across the nation to train and provide new opportunities for the transport operators and entrepreneurs. Similarly, we are increasing investment in micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. Commencing this month, the social safety net is being extended through the expansion of the cash transfer programs to an additional 15 million vulnerable households.
President Tinubu also highlights his effort at repositioning the nation's apex bank.
I pledged a thorough house cleaning of the den of malvisions the CBN has become. That house cleaning is well underway. A new leadership for the central bank has been constituted. Also, the special investigator will soon present its findings on the past lapses and how to prevent similar recurrences. Henceforth, monetary policy shall be for the benefit of all and not the exclusive province of the powerful and wealthy.
The president, who says he's not insensitive to the hardship associated with bold economic reforms, appeals to Nigerians for understanding and bravery for the future.
We can do it. We must do it.
Jeffrey Uzongo, Channels Television News.
Well, we heard the president's broadcast yesterday, and we've heard it again today. But now let's hear a bit of what Nigerians, or we'll bring you that in a bit, what Nigerians were saying in reaction to the president's speech yesterday. But while we're waiting for that film to come up, let's introduce our guest this morning. We have Mr. Billy Tafawa Balewa, who's the first son of the first Prime Minister of Nigeria's Prime Minister between August 1957 and January 1966. So Tafawa Balewa, thank you for staying with us.
Thank you.
And also joining us from the US is Shola Adekoya, a tech entrepreneur. Thank you for joining us, Shola.
Thanks for having me.
All right, just before we bring you into the conversation, let's hear from Nigerians, their reactions to the president's broadcast yesterday.
I would say, it's a good speech, but still there are things that are left out. The way things are in the land today, the growing poverty. People wanted to hear the big thing around minimum wage. People wanted to hear about how this subsidy whole thing will end. Because as you see, it looks like it's spiraled out of control, at least for the prices of gas, diesel, with over 1,000 naira. You look at the exchange rate, people would like to hear more about that. How come that naira is equal to $1 to 1,000 naira, over 1,000 naira?
I expected Mr. President to have taken time to explain how banditry, kidnapping, and insurgency happen. Obviously, not taking it seriously and laying emphasis is to give credit to the times former President Jonathan said, we had Boko Haram in my government, we eat and drink together.
For me, I've always taken the position on Independence Day, 63rd anniversary, the theme should be on the journey to nationhood. On the Democracy Day, we talk about the theme should be on Democracy Day. Issues regarding our journey to democracy, the entire democratization processes. And then that should not be mistaken for presidential addresses, where, for example, you may decide to brief every month. That's where you present your report card.
All right, Mr. Tafawa Balewa, let's start with you. Tell us, with the background you have, being a relative of the Prime Minister of Nigeria and one of the founding fathers of this nation, listening to the president broadcast yesterday, what would be your takeaway from it?
Well, I guess, thank you for having me first. And to correct you as well, I'm a grandson, not a son of the late Prime Minister. And yeah, back to your question. It seems, yes, the government is becoming to be a little bit responsive listening. His speech yesterday, he seems to have come down to really want to meet the aspirations and the desire of the Nigerian people. Of course, the removal of the subsidy was a big blow to most Nigerians. And even Mr. President did it abruptly. He did it at the Eagle Square on his swearing in. He didn't really thought through about it. Didn't know that it's going to be like this. But yeah, his speech yesterday, he said he's feeling the people, which is very good. And some good effort needs to come on board. Yesterday, they had a lengthy meeting with the labor to thrash it out. And then at the same time, I'm not too comfortable with the palliatives they are giving regarding the 5 billion they are sharing to states. For palliatives. I think more needs to be done. This is a day or two palliative. What is going to happen in the next coming months and perhaps years in this situation? So the government needs to really think about it. What about employment? Creating enabling employment. If you give a person food today, who's going to give him tomorrow? You have to have a sustainable way of cushioning, not just the normal Nigerian way of doing some odoji and you go away with it. They need to sit up, see what they have to do, and put food on the table of Nigerians. Yes.
We have a president, Nigeria currently has a president who was part of those, or part of the activism to bring Nigeria back to the democratic space. And one would say that he's coming to that place right now to help to entrench democracy. You say it looks as if he's getting a grip of the assignment before him, but there are a lot of challenges around that. Many will say that he's not really speaking clearly on. He's just more like skirting the situation.
Yeah. You are right. You see, people like us, I see the present President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, yes, as a politician. But what kind of politician? Most of them are transactional politicians. They do politics like business, and politics is not done like that. Business is different from politics. Of course, you can be a good transactional leader, but in politics, you miss the point. Now, even if you are a transactional leader, you need to surround yourself with transformational leaders, people who will tell you what needs to be done and when to be done, how it should be done. So I think, yes, President Tinubu had been an activist. We knew him since then. This is a different ball game. It is easy for you to say, Mr. A, you're not doing it right. Now he is in the hot seat, and he should be, I mean, of course, people like us are here now. We'll put him on the saddle and check him as well. So he really needs to sit down and think. Think in what? He has been a governor for 8 years. That is for Lagos. And he has been a regional politician. Now he's coming into the national limelight. It's totally different from state, regional. It is a complex situation. So to be honest, I expect him to perform. I pray for him to perform. We don't want Nigeria to be in a bad situation on him, but then he needs to really sit up. The way Amanda, they are like I said, like you can imagine, I wonder in the last 23 plus years that we've been agitating. So many other things couldn't have been done under this democratic dispensation since, I mean, 4th Republic. I mean, we are now in our 10th Republic. People are not happy. Common issues that has to do with the National Assembly are not being taken care of. You know, things need to be, people need to want to see the leaders are proactive, people who have their love at heart, who really wants to change things. Because this has to be business unusual, not business as usual. It can't go that way. We are seeing what is happening around us. The West Africa region, coups are taking place. It's not that because they want to make coups, it's because the politicians have made things so rigid that they don't want to change.
Mr. Tafawa, I'm going to come back to you, being that you tell us a bit about what your grandfather might have told you about the journey to nationhood. You tell us a bit about that. But let's bring in Mr. Ade Konye here, who joins us from the US, tech entrepreneur, telling us a bit about what, having heard the president and run through his speech, the president said, I made promises about how I would govern this great nation at my inauguration. That's part of what the president said yesterday. I made promises about how I would govern this nation. It says to reshape and modernize our economy to secure lives, liberty, and property of the people. He reminded us of what he said at the inauguration again yesterday. So if you were to look at, I mean, just over 100 days in office, what would you say the president has done? Has he hit the ground running?
Yeah, so for me, and from, you know, considering my background, I would say that from my perspective, things are hopeful. And I mean this with all sense of empathy for what is happening on ground in Nigeria. I mean it too. We currently in our space investing in tech in Nigeria and in startups and in businesses in Nigeria. We are actually investing right now, and the reason being that we see, and I don't really want to get into the politics of things, but we see a president that's pro-business, a president that is going around the world trying to restore investor confidence in Nigeria. It will take time, but we're starting to see some commitment come from international community, from investors outside of Nigeria. So that gives us some comfort to come and make some investments. And we're currently making some investment right now. Other things that we're seeing, we're also seeing a president who a lot is going on at the same time. I think Nigeria is going through what we might call a V-shaped recovery, which means you first go down and hit almost the very bottom before you start to climb back up. Right now it's very painful. We get that, and we see that, and we see how the president is trying to stimulate the economy by also trying to get people, stimulate spending through all of this what we call stimulus. The same thing happened in the U.S. back in 2008 when President Obama also was given some sort of stimulus package to try to stimulate the economy. So things like this we see over time would start to play out. In the immediate term, it's difficult and it's hard to really accept, any of that, to see the impact of anything that the president is doing. But over time, we will start to see. It takes time for recovery to happen. Not to lay blame on anyone. This is not about politics. It's just really about, from our perspective, what we are saying. We're seeing pro-business. We're seeing that, from an innovation standpoint, the president is supporting innovation. We've seen, and we strongly believe that the only one of the things that can really help Nigeria recover is not so much dependence on the government. It's really going to be innovation. If you really look at, from our perspective, it's going to be innovation. And we see a president who recognizes that, who has appointed the right people. We see the newly elected Minister of Innovation and Digital Economy, who we know his pedigree and we know what he can do. So appointing him to be there sends a signal to the tech community that I'm here for you. I'm here to lay down some policies to support your work and encourage you to come back to the economy. Now, I'm not saying that everything is all good at this point in time, but it's hopeful. From our perspective, it's hopeful, and we see the president that's putting some things in place to help secure the economy over the long term.
Okay, so
encourage.
I hear you, and I'm sure everyone hears you here. But the things you've mentioned, some of the things that you've seen a president who's pro-business, who's pro-innovation, who's looking to get investor confidence restored here in Nigeria. The other question would be, what are those parameters? You used the example of the US back in 2008 and the recovery process, a V-shaped recovery process. But there are certain parameters or certain things that should be on ground, or that should have been seen to have been set on ground almost immediately to see some of those things that we want to see in the future begin to happen. So do you see some of those necessities put in place to see the kind of recovery we want to see at the end of it?
Yeah, so so I guess maybe the first thing to say here is we see some things, to answer your question directly. The establishment of that parallel market is going to really change things over the course of time. Now, it's painful in the short term in the sense that you see dollar going to about 1,000 naira and causing a lot of inflation. We see fuel subsidy and people, causing pain on the economy. But those are things that would eventually, in the long term, really repair the economy. Without the removal of this fuel subsidy, we're going to be seeing a huge depletion, and the fast depletion of any reserve that Nigeria would ever have. I mean, over time, we would see that. What I would have loved to see in the short term, as the president is making all these policies, is to have some type of, maybe to do it in to take a staggered approach where, rather than do everything in the first 100 days, maybe take one step at a time, so that the burden and the pain will be less on the citizens. But these things that he's doing are things that would, over the long term, really repair the economy. In the short term, it's painful, and it's going to be painful in the short term because they are abrupt. These are things that we've enjoyed over a long period of time, suddenly removed. So those will be painful. But long term, they would repair the economy. So I would have loved to see some type of staggered approach where some of these are some sort of, like in the example of the US, stimulus was put in place as the economy was really tanking. So at the end of the day, it lessens the effect of inflation and job losses and all of these things on the citizens. So, but if we had seen some of these in place, then maybe it would have lessened the impact, and the pain would not be as severe as it is right now. So yes, some things in place that we see, but they're all long-term initiatives or long-term things that will have long-term impact on them.
Okay, so we're talking nation building and nationhood, looking at the tomorrow beyond the yesterday and today. What are we going to do today towards tomorrow? So let me get back to Billy Tafawa Balewa and ask him this question: what his grandfather might have told him as regards the journey to nationhood for Nigeria, being that he was Nigeria's prime minister at that time, and he was one of those that helped to birth the nation we're looking at today. So, Mr. Tafawa Balewa, can you just give us an insight into some of the things that your grandfather might have shared with you and the ones you discovered after his passing?
Oh, I wish I had met him. I was born a few years after he died. Yeah, I have read most of his memoirs. I was fortunate to meet some of the few people he had interacted with closely, like the late Damasani Kano. So many of them have late memory now. Most of them are gone. I think they are different from leaders of today, quite different. And their difference is nothing other than nationalism. They are Nigerians. First, forget they come from their regions and what have you. But the love for the country, because that was what united them, that was what brought about independence in the 60s. They were not united, it didn't have happened, was really what helped them. And look, you in Nigeria, you must strike a balance. As a leader, what he tried to do, and what most of his people told me he tried, was to strike a balance. Nigeria needs to strike a balance politically and economically. Mind you, Nigeria is a welfare state. Fine and good. I mean, this is a capitalistic world. We might perhaps at the end of the day go capitalist. But you have to govern Nigeria, you need to have some kind of a welfare system in you that you cushion some effects. We are not as advanced as America that you drive this form of capitalism through. It's easy to do it there. Here we have our complexities and differences. And what they try to do, and which at times I wonder, Nigerians are now calling for changing the constitution, referendum, restructuring, and what have you. And to be honest, the restructuring they are calling for is to go back to perhaps the late 60s, the regional or some kind of different arrangement. Then why did we scuttle that arrangement in the first place? I mean, we need to go ahead, go further. If we can come together at this material time, 63 years of independence, for God's sake, I wonder when would it be time for us to come together? We were talking in the media the other time. There are so many government interventions that was brought in, even after their time. Gowon's time, they tried to foster that national unity. In all the other governments that came, they tried to foster national unity. At least, let's be one country. But where they I guess where they got it right, is you can't govern Nigeria transactionally. You cannot govern Nigeria. It's a multi-complex society. You cannot govern Nigeria. You have to be transformational. Open your eyes, because there are good people in all the regions of Nigeria, and there are bad people. You cannot stereotype me. You see a northerner, you think he's an illiterate. Or perhaps you see a Yoruba man, you think he's a Wayo man, or a Koni man, or an Igbo man, you feel any Igbo man you see is a cheat. No, there are good people who have made this country proud as well. So you have to have that finesse to really pick the best out of them, and you make it. And this is not magic. This is pure and simple. You must know Nigeria for you to govern Nigeria. I'm optimistic with the current leaders that we have today. I'm optimistic because I'm a pragmatist. I believe Nigeria will go places. If only we'll try and make things right. I mean, for God's sake, can you imagine up till now, we cannot give local government autonomy? How do you drive the programs and whatever you want? States are still shackling local governments. They won't allow them breathe. And yet they take away their money and do things with it. So leaders must really look inwards. What do you want to be? Is it legacy you want to leave or money? Because most of them are racing to be the richest. I mean, we should have to start looking inwards to see that it's not money that is everything. Yes, you need money. It's an oil, or rather a fuel. But then you need to have leaders who will want to die for the country. And if you don't do that, my friend from America.
Oh dear, just as, you know, the conversation is getting interesting and we're getting some very profound thoughts from Mr. Tafawa Balewa. It appears the communication may have hung, but it appears that he's returning. Mr. Tafawa Balewa.
Or you are for us or for them. So there's no taking one side and then leaving the other side. You must strike a balance for you to be able to carry the people along. Yeah.
Yes, so Mr. Tafawa Balewa, I'm wondering how we can strike that balance, and perhaps something that we could have gleaned from the president's speech on that balance and the need for unity to come together as one would have been, you know, pointing us to a direction. But perhaps I can take out something from his speech. And he says, Nigeria is remarkable in its formation and essential character. We're a broad and dynamic blend of ethnic groups, religions, traditions, and cultures. Yet our bonds are intangible, yet strong, invisible, yet universal. We are joined by common thirst for peace and progress, by the common dream of prosperity and harmony, by the unifying ideals of tolerance and justice. Is this enough acknowledgement of the challenge of our fault lines, particularly because, you know, just a day to the independence celebration, the vice president had, you know, acknowledged that the elections that brought this administration was one of the most divisive in Nigeria's history. So could the president have been more elaborate about how, you know, to champion a cause for unity for Nigerians, just such that in the near future, Nigerians will begin to see themselves more as Nigerians than as people from an ethnic nationality in one region of the country? Mr. Tafawa Balewa, that's for you.
Yeah, I didn't get your earlier speech because there was a glitch. But anyway, beautiful. The speech by Mr. President yesterday was beautiful. But, you know, I hope to see them walking the talk. He seems to have shown that, yes, he understood the problem on the ground. He knows the pains that Nigerians are suffering. And he seems to be a clinical doctor that thinks he knows how to fix it. What we want to see now is him walking the talk, not only him. The vice president, I have seen the vice president's speech. Even the speaker of the National Assembly, I have seen his speech, where they all seem to show that, yes, there's this problem. Yes, we know the problem is there, and we'll do whatever we can to fix this problem. But, you know, it's a different ball game. I used to say in wherever party I find myself, you know, Nigeria is so funny. 36 governors combined together are stronger than the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. They dictate what happens. It's not about only you, the president. You must carry along the states and the National Assembly together. But I think from now, we haven't seen that happening. We want to see him carrying the National Assembly and the state assembly, the state government, being in the same page with him, where they will start to drive the changes we want to see. Earlier, I told you about local government autonomy. I mean, for the past 20 plus years, National Assembly collect money from the federal government in the name of constitutional amendment and what have you, and nothing will come out of it. They will whack the money and go away, and nobody cares to come and ask them, what is happening? Why didn't you do this? I mean, there are so many cracks in the foundation. We need to see them now mending the cracks. And mending these cracks is him, Mr. President, carrying everyone along. Forget the era of APC, PDP is gone. Now it's governance. What we want to see is proactive government. Government that not just only we see them on the pages of the newspaper and print media telling us that, yes, we know, we'll do this, we'll do that. Let it be seen to be done. That's what we're asking for. And I think we're not asking for too much. Besides, there's a need for as well to engage the common people. The workers that the NLC now have struck a deal with the government, they are less than 2% of the Nigerian population. What about the 98% left? How is the government going to carry them along? No, any plan yet. Besides the humanitarian ministry that are now trying to capture another 15 million households. I mean, something needs to be done. And I'm hopeful. Tinubu being coming from the transactional side, a businessman par excellence, perhaps you will get the right people to help him do that. Otherwise, I'm sorry. For now, yesterday, if you see me on Twitter, I'm really not a proud Nigerian. I'm a Nigerian, but not really a proud Nigerian as the way things are. We need to see movement, upward movement for the betterment of the country.
That's a very honest admittance there, Mr. Tafawa Balewa. There's a lot to be proud of, as far as the country is concerned. And this is, the time to reflect on, the positives that are to come. There's a lot coming out from, some of the things that you have said, the need for the leaders to be transformational rather than transactional, and, why we abandoned the template, the governance template, that brought Nigeria prosperity, at the beginning of its political history, which is where I'm headed, but that will be after the break. But we also have joining us Professor Hafiz Abubakar, former Deputy Governor of Kano State. I'll be coming to you, but that will be after the break. Stay with us. We'll be back shortly.
The 63rd Independence Day celebration across the nation commenced in earnest following the message from President Bola Tinubu, who called on Nigerians to be ready for change in the nation.
To endure, our home must be constructed on safe and pleasant ground.
In Rivers State, during an interdenominational service for the commemoration of Nigeria's independence, Governor Fubara says he believes Nigeria is on the right course, but calls for citizens' participation to build the nation of everyone's dream.
Every one of us has a responsibility to bring that nation of our dream. It's not the sole responsibility of who is the president, or who is the governor of the state, who is the local government chairman. No, it's all our duty.
From the Alex Ekweme Square in Oka, Anambra State, the Independence Day celebration rekindles hope for Nigeria as Governor Chukwuma Soludo insists that everyone must be intentional in the decisions to make Nigeria work.
We pray for the President of Nigeria, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR, and his team at the federal government, members of the National and State Assemblies, the judiciary, and members of the international community. Together, we can make Nigeria great.
While the Imo State Governor, Hope Uzodinma, says he's optimistic that Nigeria will soon rise to become one of the strongest nations in the world despite present challenges.
As we celebrate this year's independence anniversary, we should renew our faith in Nigeria. We must remain confident that this blessed country will ultimately become a great nation. I foresee a Nigeria that will sooner than later rise above the challenges that are currently impeding her march to a viral and prosperous nation.
The old eastern capital, Enugu, the state governor, Mr. Peter Mbah, who was represented by his deputy, urged Nigerians to work together for the country's peace and development, while pointing out education and skills for children and young people as a critical building block.
We are aggressively developing a modern skills acquisition program in collaboration with our development partners to equip more of our young people with the tools and skills they need to take advantage of the private sector driven economy we have already started to unleash on the economy of our state and for the good of our people.
also representing the Deputy Governor on behalf of the Oyo State Governor, Seyi Makinde, salutes the courage and resilience of Nigerians for remaining united despite all the pitfalls and challenges facing the country.
Nigeria as a country was endangered by various challenges, but through resilience and capacity to stand as a nation, we have overcome such challenges.
With the colorful display of the various ethnic groups in Nigeria on Independence Day celebration, for many, this 63rd commemoration signals another day of rekindled hope and improved harmonious living as a nation.
Welcome back. It's still Sunrise Daily on Channels Television, and we're bringing you our Independence edition, anniversary edition, a continuation from October 1. We still have with us in our Kano studio Professor Hafiz Abubakar, former Deputy Governor of Kano State and former Chairman, National University Commission. Of course, we still have with us Mr. Billy Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, grandson of the first Prime Minister of Nigeria. And we have joining us in our Lagos studio, we'll come to him shortly, Professor Chris Imumolen, academic entrepreneur and politician. It's a convergence of academics on the program today. Let me now come to you, Professor Hafiz Abubakar. Thank you for joining us on the program. The president's speech is still in scrutiny as we reflect on nation building this morning. Mr. Tafawa Balewa has lauded that speech as containing positives and pointing us in the right direction as far as unity is concerned. But is it elaborate enough, particularly amid calls this time around for restructuring?
Thank you very much.
Yes. Go ahead,
Thank you very much for the opportunity to have a word this auspicious occasion of 63rd anniversary. I have listened to the many contributions. I want to totally agree with the last contributor, Mr. Billy Tafawa Balewa. Quite a beautiful speech. It has quite a lot of positives, but the problem remains the issue of translating the talks into actions, walking, as he said, the talk. I think this has been one of the greatest challenges of our country. Our leaders talk beautifully, but it happens that in the end, there's a serious disconnect between their tongues and their hearts. And this is exceptionally one of the key deficits in our leadership in this country. We don't lead by example. We believe that propaganda can take us through from the time of campaign to election and to governance, all through using the instruments of propaganda to lead our people. We as a people have been known globally to be very religious. Unfortunately, we are very religious, but the more the index of religion goes higher, the less the fear of God, because the backbone of any religion should be the fear of the God that you worship, which is very, very low in our country. And God's fear actually is the backbone of truthful and purposeful leadership. Because only a leader that fears his God, that will be fair, just, and equitable in the administration of his people. And that is seriously lacking in our country. Ours is a blessed nation that is being settled. The whole world accepts. many of us Nigerians have now accepted that this is a beloved, blessed nation of human, material, and other resources to be able to have a veritable place in the global map. But unfortunately, I think we have been our own enemies. And the key deficit is that of leadership. Leadership deficit has been our bane, and there is very little hope, actually, in that regard, because there is serious dominance by the wrong people of all sectors of leadership. My friend has just talked. The foundation, the system we are operating, the federal system, we are supposed to have 3 tiers of government, but we all know we only have one. We are supposed to have the local government, the state, and the federal government. And one of the key things now at this point, when we are going through very difficult times, the federal government itself, is not very sure of how it navigates these supposed to be short-term difficulties in taking the right decision for the long term. But to be able to administer the palliatives that can take care and take the common man and the common Nigerians through these difficult times is almost proven to be nowhere to be found and impossible. And one of the key reasons why it's so difficult is because we have wrecked the local government system. We have made it subservient to the state, and it is just an extension of the corrupt system of the state. So we are finding it very difficult. Just imagine if we had a proper local government system. It would have been very, very easy for us to cooperate between the local government, the state government, and the federal government to be able to bring a lot of succor to our people under these difficult times, and even in times of prosperity. That was the essence. That was the thinking of those who have proposed for this 3-tier level of government. And these are the tiers that are working everywhere, whether it's the parliamentary system, whether it's the corporate parliamentary system, whether it's the presidential system, whether it is the communist or socialist system. These tiers, especially the local government tier, exists, and it functions very, very well. And that's why we, as Nigeria, we travel all around, we appreciate the developments that we see around. It is part of the reason for us to appreciate that. Unless that 3rd tier of government works properly, it is almost impossible for you to bring about development to the lowest level of the people. And we are seeing it at this time. I want to believe the federal government has very good intention of wanting to bring succor to the people. But the environment is not there, unfortunately. The federal government alone cannot shoulder that responsibility. We are running a federal system. So these tiers of government have to be in total cooperation, and they have to be functional. But when you have already made the local governments to be appendages of the state government, and in the leadership recruitment system, the same extremely unfit, corrupt, people that don't fear God, either their personal or official lives, they don't fear God, because it is only somebody who doesn't fear God that will be saying what he doesn't mean from his heart. If you take two beautiful speeches, you will believe that, our leaders understand all our challenges, and they even understand the solutions. But that is not the case. When it comes to practice, I think everybody knows the answer in this country.
But Professor Hafiz, would you say that the local governments, while you served in Kano State, enjoyed as much financial autonomy that would have given them the independence, to provide good governance at the grassroots?
It doesn't start with financial independence. It starts with the leadership recruitment system.
fundamentally. If the leadership recruitment system is faulty, which is the case now, you know, you recall there has been a lot of cries from people to scrap the state independent electoral commissions because they have just been bastions of corruption and strengthening this bad leadership recruitment process. As a first step, I'm not saying INEC is perfect, but it would have lessened the problem we are facing in the leadership recruitment system. You have to recruit the right people at the local government level before you come to the independence, financial independence. I think the last administration had tried to remit funds to the local governments directly. But what happens when they even do that? Because of the very bad leadership at the level of the local government and the state government, and they have been stooges and cronies of the state governors and their aides, what happened? Majority of the funds have been just round-tripped back to those that have appointed them there or selected them there. Many people are not participating in even the state organized local government election. Many, substantial number. So when you look at even the level of apathy, if you look at the numbers, those elections shouldn't even stand. When 10%, 12%, 5% of the eligible electors are the ones voting in those sham state-organized elections, you see that there is a fundamental issue, and that is of the leadership recruitment process itself. So personally, you need to address the leadership recruitment process before you come to the issue of the independence of funding.
Professor Hafiz, and you know, some would even say that the reasons that they may be stooges as local government chairmen in the first place, you know, are debatable besides the concern about the leadership recruitment process. But let me come to you, Mr. Shola, our guest, you know, that joins us via Zoom. You are a tech entrepreneur, and you know, in that space, there's been, you know, a lot of enthusiasm about the new Minister of Communication, you know, but there's also that challenge, you know, of what should be contained in course curriculum where tech is concerned, the absence of ChatGPT, artificial intelligence in much of our education system. But besides, yes, Mr. Adekoye, besides the education system, there's also agriculture that requires tech. What partnerships can that ministry form with the agriculture sector, the education sector, to introduce technology that will bring substantial progress to those sectors of the economy for growth? Mr. Adekoye, that's for you.
Yeah, so, I mean, that ministry needs to partner with the private sector. There's a lot of innovation going on ground, but they lack funding, they lack the exposure, they lack the access to avenues where they can introduce some of these solutions here. Before innovation can really start to make impact on the Nigerian economy, it needs to really be accepted. And right now, we're at the very beginning stages of it. It will take some time for us to actually see the impact of that. But for now, some partnerships as far as digitalizing the economy, we have to see, one of the things that needs to be done is to really partner with technology experts or companies outside of Nigeria to bring some you know, help us develop the digital economy in Nigeria, and then create access for funding to the private sector. There's a lot of innovation on ground. We need Nigerian innovators to solve Nigerian problems, but the partnerships that needs to be done is really partnerships with maybe banks, private sector, investors, you know, abroad to continue to invest in the Nigerian, you know, startup ecosystem. The solutions are there. We've seen a lot of solutions, a lot of tech innovation coming out of agriculture. We've seen how, you know, agro-processing waste can now be used to generate electricity. We've seen how, you know, some startups have actually come up to go to universities to propose ideas about teaching students tech right from schools and adding tech to curriculums in schools, so that these students will graduate with some understanding of tech, and they can branch out to be entrepreneurs themselves. So most of the partnerships that need to be done is really just with investors. Really, more investment needs to come into the innovation and tech space to fund Nigerian ideas to solve Nigerian problems. There's a lot of ideas around, but most of the investment that we're seeing are going into one particular segment of the tech ecosystem, which is fintech. And we see that as a good thing, but without funding education, without funding agriculture, we're not going to have a balanced ecosystem, because most of Nigerian wealth will still be migrated outside of Nigeria through just fintech. If Nigerians can't buy agricultural products or can't get enough from agriculture in Nigeria, can't get enough education in Nigeria, then they will spend Nigerian money to go get it outside of Nigeria. That's migrating Nigerian wealth outside of Nigeria as well. So we need to establish domestic markets in agriculture by investing in all these different startups. There are many entrepreneurs who are hungry, who have strong ideas, great ideas, that are ready to do the work as well, but lack investment, lack access. So the partnerships will be to just draw investment into this space, more investment. And one thing I do have to say is that we also see many foreign companies now coming to Nigeria to present themselves or disguise as Nigerian companies. Well, that also needs to be looked at. And we know we've talked to the Nigerian Startup Act to really look into that as well. This investment needs to go to Nigerian startups, Nigerian solution providers. We don't want foreign companies coming to Nigeria and acting as Nigerian companies, taking all the investment and then creating solutions that don't exactly solve Nigerian problems. So for us to really see things in agriculture and education, there needs to be more transparency in that. There needs to be some attraction for investors to come into this space and invest in Nigerian ideas, solving Nigerian problems.
Indeed, and I wonder if, it's the private sector that needs to play the key role in that regard. What about the public sector? But let me bring Professor Chris Imumolen into the picture now. Professor Chris Imumolen, thank you for joining us. Professor Imumolen is an academic, entrepreneur, and politician. Is also the Vice Chancellor, Global Wealth University, and President, Onshore, Offshore Oil and Gas Professionals, Nigeria.
Thank you.
That's quite some experience. So perhaps you pick up from, some of the points raised by Mr. Adekoye on the need also, to check that space, particularly with the Nigerian startup bill, which has become law, by the way, and, where there are a lot of foreign companies, coming into the space and, fronting as Nigerian companies. But particularly what can also be done about the public sector where EdTech, agri-tech and fintech is concerned, such that there can be meaningful growth in that sector.
Okay, thank you for this chance for talking here. And when we talk about public sector, public sector, which comprise of majorly the public servants and ministries, the MDAs, ministries, department, and agencies, it's very key because these are actually the driver of the federal government policies and federal government intentions. So it's important that the sector needs to be looked into. And I often would say that digitalizing such sector is very important. And it starts by training, retraining, and reorientation of the manpower who runs those sector. For too long a time, we have a public sector in Nigeria that have lived far behind where it ought to live. That is why most of the federal government ideas and initiatives, though might look wonderful in the paper, but when it comes to implementation, it does not hit the ground running the way it ought to be. Why? Because most of the drivers of those sectors do not have most of them do not have what the kind of knowledge, the kind of skill set needed to drive a digital economy and digital ecosystem. I just listened to the person talking from California. Very wonderful idea. But the sector, the public sector you mentioned, it's you did mention one thing that I also contested for president in the last election. And one of the things we were saying was that, let's look at the civil servant, for example, the civil service. We had the civil service reform, we had a lot of things, but we still get to know that the civil servant, which is the driver of the government policies, need a lot of systemic reorientation, a lot of mental orientation, and a lot of restructuring even right there, and which by itself can now help to drive that digital ecosystem we talk about. When there's a need for connectivity even amongst this, if you go through what is happening in the public sector, you'll be so amazed at the kind of analog the system is. We've had many times where government will give mandates, say digitalization mandate. Every ministry, every agency must start digitalizing its operation before social deadline. And there have never been a time such a deadline have been. So there's a need for total overhauling of that system. There's a need for collaboration.
Absolutely. And what about the education sector? You talked about the analog system. Most of, the public schools have, just the basics in computer course, but no sophistication that will require the innovation that will prepare those young people, when they leave the secondary education system and the university education system into the workspace, for them to wield the much needed influence for innovation and growth. So what can be done at that level? That's why I'm asking about partnerships between the communication ministry, the education ministry, and the agriculture ministry.
Yes, our educational system is overhauled. It's what's it called? It's overpopulated. Let me use that word. We're a country of over 220 million people, and I've often recommended that for proper attention to be given, let's talk about education, to our educational sector. I had offered to say that even the ministry should be separated. We should have a ministry that is focused on as in the secondary and the primary and secondary education, for proper focusing. Then we have a ministry that is purely focused on vocational and technical education, and we have another for post-secondary, which is the tertiary education. This by itself will help to give more attention to seeing the problem we have, and that attention will help to start driving factors that are needed, like we talk about digitalization, technology, that will help the young ones to begin to harness skills that will help us drive our economy. Once we're able to have this attention, you begin to see that whatsoever is budgeted, we have, for example, the last budget had about 7.something% budgeted for education alone. But we begin to ask, these things are in the budget, but how come it's not materializing? We are not seeing it effective. In one is, we need key focus. Once you see a minister of education, just watch it. His focus is always on the university. And I can tell you without mincing word that about 60% of our students from the secondary school are not even groomed enough to have basic knowledge. We're not even talking about technology now. Basic knowledge in basic subjects, let alone technology that will help them migrate to the university and become who they ought to be. So we need...
Is it a curriculum problem?
One, it's a focus problem. We need to... That is the biggest ministry. A ministry that is attending to over 80 million Nigerians in school. We need to first have a focus on them so that there will be, okay, well, now we have a Minister of Education. Maybe the government can be thinking of having maybe people in various positions that will properly give focus to this. For example, let me give an example. A state like Zamfara, schools have been shut down for 3 years. So we're not even talking about digitalization there because there's insecurity challenges. We also have this, we are a religious country, and if you go far north, there's this apathy towards a kind of Western education. There's a lot of things that we need to really look into before just jumping to say, okay, if you look at the South, for example, who have been privileged before post-colonial era, before after independence, to have embraced education to a kind of extent. But again, it's the question of having our children have this digital education becomes a problem. So what I would say is there's a need for attention, there's a need for focus to ensuring that the curriculum that we have, we don't have issues with curriculum, I can tell you. I've gone through, I'm an academia, I've seen this curriculum, maybe one or two things should just be added. You know, you did mention of ChatGPT, robotics. We now have coding lessons we now have a lot of private schools, public schools, right? We have the internet, where many people are now, our children are beginning to, Nigeria can tell you without, Nigeria is a tech-savvy economy.
Country.
Yeah, country, without even the educational support. So we don't really have a big issue. What the issue we have is just the issue of focus. And many persons might not be seeing it that way. They might just say, oh, teach these people. By the time you do those things, you end up seeing that there's no frantic effort being made in that. So our curriculum is okay, maybe one or two touches, but we need to begin to look at dividing those ministries so that we can have focus. Let's look at the primary sector. Other countries are having it. We have other countries that are not as big as Nigeria and West Africa who have ministers for each of these three sectors so that they can be focused on it. Education is very important.
That's expanding the cabinet. We're already concerned about the high cost of governance.
It's not about,
because of the number of ministries under this administration.
It's not about expanding. It's about what we want to achieve. If we are able to, at the end of the day, develop Nigerians whose mind are developed in a way to solve our local problems, we had someone. If we're able to, we look at the cost and effect analysis now. It's not about expanding. Education is the biggest ministry we have. That is the truth. And if Nigerians, if we continue this way, in Sokoto, for example, we're talking about education. In Sokoto, last year, only one person wrote WAEC. One person searched for WAEC. So you can see, it's not about whether the cost or no cost. What is the cost of having our children not educated at the end of the day, compared to the cost of wanting to? So that is my simple advocate, that we need to begin to look at the Ministry of Education and have it divided. So for proper focus, for proper attention, so that we can help in training our children to gaining those knowledge required. Then ICT also, providing that environment for them, retraining the teachers, even the teachers who teaches these courses. How many do we have of them? Many of the teachers, even not just in primary, secondary school, even in the university. And I must tell you one thing, ICT providers are one of the scarce personnel you get, because they are not usually, for those who run companies will know this, those who have schools will know, they are not usually on ground because their need is so much. So we need to begin to retrain those that are going to train them, expose them to countries like West Indian, who currently is doing very, very well in tech sector, and bring them back. The concept of reverse engineering would help us as a country. We don't need to do so much. There are countries who are already doing what we want to do. No, let's do what Taiwan, like what Japan, what China did so many years ago. Copy, bring Nigerians to look at this technology and duplicate it in Nigeria. It's not rocket science. We bring it to what is working in other countries. Okay, if Egypt, for example, is doing so well, a country is doing so well in medicine and is adopting technology in it, if Israel is doing so well in agric and is applying technology in it, if US is doing, what are they doing? Like, can we begin to look at these things and begin to look at the concept, the components that makes them do so well, and begin to have our Nigerian curriculum, have our Nigerian people look at the same technology, and we start by copying, we start by reverse engineering, and by so doing, ingenuity comes in. Yeah.
Interesting. The over-dependence on, one aspect of an expansive Ministry of Education and its implication on our need, to power a knowledge-driven economy. There's also the concern about insecurity on, in the agri sector, and how innovation and technology can be introduced into that sector in the first place. So many concerns arising from this conversation, and I hope that Nyota will also have similar poses relating to these subject matters. We're due for another break. When we return, we'll have more questions and more seasoned analysts on the program. Stay with us.
Welcome back. We still have all our guests here, and yes, Buki was asking a lot of questions there. We still have Billy Tafawa Balewa, grandson of Nigeria's former Prime Minister, Professor Hafiz Abubakar from our Kano studio, Shola Dekonye, who joined us from the US, Washington in USA, and Professor Chris Imumolen, who's in our Lagos studio. But let me start with you, Professor Abubakar, on that matter of splitting the education ministry. Professor Imumolen talked about splitting it in order to give focus to certain areas. That had, I think the question had to do with the issue of curriculum. Our curriculum is such that we produce graduates who are more or less job hunting, not ready to get in there and begin to create the jobs that can change, that can contribute immensely to our economy. So what's your take on the suggestion to split the education ministry?
Well, first of all, I'm going back to the issue of curriculum. I don't think it would be fair to put all the blame on our curriculum. Yes, at any moment, first of all, let's understand that curriculum is dynamic. It's not anything permanent. Under every circumstance, curriculums are supposed to be reviewed periodically because they guide on the type of education that you want to give related to the time, the circumstances, the civilization as it is going. So curriculum is supposed to be dynamic. It's not supposed to be a permanent issue. And I think we have been reviewing. Right now, I'm fully aware the National Universities Commission for the last 2 years been engaged in the curriculum review. The review itself is still ongoing. It has been ongoing for about 2 years now. And by the time it's finished, maybe in the next 5 years, it needs to be reviewed. I support Professor in terms of the issue of split for the reasons that he gave. The issue of focus. If it is split, I think they will be more focused. Right now, when one ministry houses it, as he says, the tertiary level of education dominates, even though 80% of the staff of the Federal Ministry of Education are from the secondary schools. Most of the middle level and senior level management of the Ministry of Education are former principals that started as teachers from secondary schools, federal secondary schools. So that sector is dominating the senior and middle level management of the ministry, but yet you have very little progress on the part of particularly the primary and the secondary schools. In my own understanding as an academic of the last 35 years, I think one of the deficits we have is the issue of regulation. The primary and secondary school level of education is not being properly regulated. When you look at the tertiary level, all the three sectors of the tertiary level, the universities, the polytechnics, and the colleges of education have a regulator. The NUC is regulating the university education, the MBT is regulating the polytechnic education, while the NCCE is regulating the teacher education at the tertiary level. But when it comes to the primary and the secondary school levels, we don't have a regulator. UBEC is not a regulator for primary and junior secondary schools. The recently commissioned Secondary School Commission is not a regulator, rather they are funding agencies. So I think one of the things that we need to put in place are regulators. We can have one regulator, we can have two regulators for the post-basic and the basic level of education. I think that will in itself, help to put focus, as my colleague was saying. Issue of focus, because when you have these units standing on their own, with their own level of authority, because the issue is they are within the same roof as Federal Ministry of Education. We even have a Minister of State that normally is in charge of the primary school education. But unfortunately, junior ministers are like supervisors. They are not managers because they don't take decisions. The senior ministers actually are co-decision makers. So you find that, as I always say, when you give anybody a responsibility, you just have to give him the accompanying authority to be able to be accountable. Unfortunately,
no, Professor Abubakar, if I may come in here, the matter of splitting,
and therefore, splitting them.
Can I come in, Professor Abubakar? The matter of splitting the ministry, we're talking about cutting down cost of governance. But you've just, again, sort of like suggested again, creating a regulatory agency for the primary and secondary education, just like there is a regulatory agency for the tertiary education. Wouldn't that be all burdening an already bogus or an already bloated workforce, or where cost of governance is increasing the more, instead of bringing it down by splitting the ministry, creating more regulatory agencies? Meanwhile, there's a permanent secretary in the Ministry of Education, and there are directors heading each of these different arms or structures in the education sector in Nigeria. So why do we need to create another ministry, as you say, for focus, as Professor Imumole said, for focus, when these people are there and they are supposed to be doing what they're supposed to do, monitoring, regulating, and managing the education sector?
Well, they have different roles, to be honest with you. First of all, in terms of the issue of cost of governance, by way of budgetary allocation, we are still within 7% of the budget being allocated to the whole education sector. We are still far away. The minimum UNESCO recommendation of 25% is still very, very far away in our country. So if truly we understand that education actually is the bedrock of development, then you take it alongside the other sectors and do the cost-effective analysis. Whatever you do in the education sector will not contribute to any bottleneck, because we are still very, very far away from the level of funding that we are supposed to be. Coming to the officials that you are mentioning, under the same roof, you find that the system within the Federal Ministry of Education is talking of hierarchy. And the university, whoever, for example, is heading the National Universities Commission, is being seen as the most senior person in terms of the committee of advice to the Honorable Minister. These officials surround the minister, and it goes like in terms of hierarchy. So when it comes to managerial discussions, focus, and decisions, it takes precedence along this hierarchical ladder. So that's why you find that the tertiary level, with all its encumbrances and challenges, dominate the space. And therefore, yes, they are there, but I wish you can just take an analytical, what can I say, a visit to the Ministry of Education, and you will see this very, very clearly. So in terms of focus, I think it is worth the road to follow that, so that we can, at a certain stage, after achieving some milestones, we can just come back into one umbrella at a stage.
Let me come back to you, Professor Chris Imumole, and then all our panelists, you just weigh in on this one question about the recruitment process, leadership recruitment process in Nigeria. I mean, the president's spoken, so we're looking at going forward, building it tomorrow, a Nigeria that everyone can be proud of. So let's have all of us weigh in on this matter. How do we go about changing our leadership recruitment process? How do we birth in every Nigerian that understanding that where you are, you're a leader, and so when you step in, or you're given the opportunity to select someone to lead, to be the first amongst equals, just know that where you are, you have something to contribute to all of this. Let me start with you, Professor Imumole.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. First, we talked a lot about restructuring. I feel that we need to start by restructuring our mind as Nigerians. I went through the election process, and it gave me an experience to truly know Nigeria, not just from the academic part or from the entrepreneurial part, which I have, but from the perspective of one, politics, economy, and the rest. And I saw Nigeria truly. And if we must have the kind of leader that we want, the recruitment process to select right leaders, it starts, one, with a child that is giving birth to, what do we feed the child? What environment is the child exposed to? It starts by re-engineering our educational system. Education is not just about schools. It's about formal, non-formal, and informal. What the child that is giving birth to from a day old is being fed, what makes up his mind, what kind of value system he has, what kind of influences he has. So if we must have good leaders, it's about Nigerians themselves. Nigerians are product of our environment. You see people being given appointment and they are celebrating, dancing. That shows you what our value system is. We have problem, we have an enormous challenge in the economy. I believe whosoever is appointed or selected to lead should even think first to say, oh, there's an enormous problem we must fix. And at this time where we have budget deficit, our FX is bad, our so many things. So that value system is very key. Re-engineering our mind, revamping our educational system, talking to religious leaders, influential people to begin to send right signals to the mind of Nigeria to begin to have a value shift, a mind shift, to have a better Nigeria. In that way, we know that whosoever is selected is not going to be about the process, because if we are going to look at the process itself and say we need to select the right people, where are you selecting from? It's not about the process, it's about the people. If we are sure that maybe in 20 years from now, we are able to work on the Nigeria ecosystem, Nigerian people, by revamping what goes into the mind of Nigeria, how Nigerians are being groomed from a day old to their youthful stage, to their adult stage, then we are sure that no matter whatsoever the kind of leadership system we use in recruiting Nigerians, we are sure of recruiting at least Nigerians that can have Nigeria at heart. That is mine. Then again, that shouldn't mean that we should throw away the system. The system is key. I am an advocate of developing a systemic economy. Nigeria, as it is today, is not a digital economy. And any economies that still run analog will be faulty. Any system that needs human input to decide at every time will be faulty. So we need to begin to database our country. We need to begin to run a digital system that will be able to identify Nigerians, know who Nigerians are. It's about what the problem we have. To me, Nigeria is a systemic problem. For example, let's look at how do we even identify Nigeria? Because we're talking about selecting who? Selecting Nigerians. How do we identify? How does a Nigerian acquire its passport to as a Nigerian? Look at those processes. It tells you that there's a lot of fault in the system that makes up Nigeria. So as people, we need to begin to look back. How we need to identify Nigeria. I know we have the NIM system of identifying, numbering ourselves, but they are not effective. They are not really telling who Nigerians are. We are in a country truly where anybody can become a Nigeria. So one, the value system for Nigeria, Nigeria.
You've spoken quite a lot. Let me just pass this on to another professor, Professor Hafiz Abubakar. Your take on the leadership recruitment process and, as your colleague said, mindset renewal for Nigerians. How do we go about that?
Again, I can say I always agree. Not because he's my colleague, but he's always saying the right thing. I think mindset is key. Mindset is key because of the level of decadence that we have gone. Here at this point, I want to believe two levels of leadership have a critical role to play here. We have our religious leaders and our cultural or community or traditional leaders. I think they will have to play a very critical role. And of course, our people, because some of it will start from our home training, our upbringing, and then a lot of advocacy on the fear of God from our religious leaders, what is right, that whatever you do in this world, you will be held accountable for it. And besides, the dignity of the human race, actually, that you need to contribute possibly towards its development. So our religious leaders, in my own view, will have a critical role. So also our various community leaders who enjoy a lot of respect from us to not only talk, but lead by example. I think in the issue of the subject matter of mindset, they will have a critical role to play, especially for those that are upcoming, our youth.
All right.
So that the subject matter will be increased patriotism, increased love for our country, and love for God's sake. We love for God's sake, expecting reward in our own lives and in the lives of those that we leave behind.
All right, thank you.
I think that will also play a very important role.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for your contribution, Professor Hafiz Abubakar. Let's hear from you, Shola Adekonye, this matter of mindset renewal, rebuilding our nation.
First of all, the issue of recruitment needs to be an inclusive one. It no longer has to be about religion or about culture or about gender, about anything. It has to be who can do the job that needs to be included, that needs to be hired. Right now, officially, the world is now in a new industrial revolution, which is the digital industrial revolution. About more than 90% of all Nigerians that are tech savvy did not learn from public schools. They either learned on their own or learned from private school. Now, in this industrial revolution, we need people that have the mindset, the progressive mindset, to really steer Nigeria in that direction, in the direction to catch up to the rest of the world and be well positioned in the future. So it has to be inclusive. Who can do the work? We already see some things done by the president. He's hired some people who we believe, have lived the experiences, have done some things in the private sector. By bringing them on there, it really does restore some confidence that the president is recruiting the right people. But there still needs to be a lot more done in that regard. It needs to cascade down all the way to the local government, to the state government. It needs to cascade down, not just at that level, but all the way down, even to the private sector. It no longer needs to be, who I know or who is next in line. It has to be who we have to give regard and we have to give some respect to the people that have served in long term. But we also have to include people that can actually do the work, that can help position Nigeria for this new industrial revolution. Right now, Nigeria is behind, unfortunately, way behind. And if we're going to really get Nigeria there, to recruit the right people that will make the right policies in education, in agriculture, and really position Nigeria for the future, it needs to be who can do the work. We've heard calls by the president and the minister, the new minister, calling people all around the world who should come back home and try to do the work. It's not about hiring people that are coming back home. It's about who is qualified, who has the mind to really align to the vision or to position Nigeria for the future. Okay. The industrial revolution has already kicked in, so we need to really be positioned and catch up to the rest of the world.
All right, thank you, Mr. Tafawa Balewa, please.
Well, yeah, I think you see, I do agree that one of the biggest problems we have in this country is the leadership recruitment. We had it fine. You can see pre-independence and even after independence, there was this leadership recruitment institutions in virtually every part of Nigeria. But I guess due to the intermittent military rule that we've had, it erodes that system we've had, the cultural, religious system that Professor Hafiz said. It used to be there. But over time, with the introduction of the military rule for so many years, that got eroded. And then suddenly politics came in. We must go back. The unfortunate thing that is the bane of Nigeria in every sphere of discipline, politics, business, and what have you, is organization. We are not organized people. That has been our problem. And I keep wondering, what can we do to get ourselves organized? That's the only key that we need to be on the top of the world, Africa and the world. We need to organize ourselves. It's not because you have money, automatically you become a leader. No way. It's not done like that anywhere. Go to America. It's not done like that. Or you have influence, you are in government, automatically you become a leader. I still have my reservations in terms of the cabinet Mr. President have. I mean, there are a lot of people were given ministerial positions because they have lost elections. Some are greenhorns, they don't know nothing. They're just coming in. But I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful things will work out because I love my country. But to be honest, we must give emphasis on leadership recruitment, especially to the younger ones. Because right now, it's so unfortunate. They think the only way you can access power is go and steal money, because that's the in thing. Go steal money from government, come present yourself, and you become who you want to be. Now, the traditional systems must come on board.
Right.
The religious systems must come on board. And even government must try to see that, yes, they drive that. Unlike you see most states, they are employing or giving appointment to their children and their friends, their girlfriends and what have you. That's not governance.
All right.
Governance is a serious business, and we must see it to be done, and that's the best thing for Nigeria.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Billy Tafawa Balewa, grandson of Nigeria's former prime minister and politician who joined us via Zoom from Bauchi. Thank you for coming in this morning. We also heard from our Kano studio the former chairman of the Nigeria Universities Commission, Professor Hafiz Abubakar. Then we had Shola Adekonye, who's a tech entrepreneur joining us from Washington in the USA. And then we had in our Lagos studio, we had Professor Chris Imumolen, academia, entrepreneur, politician, and Accord presidential candidate 2023 general elections. I want to thank you all for sharing your thoughts and your morning with us. But we do have feedback from you, the viewer. We have this one from Alexander Alassa, who says, God bless Pa Ben Odiase, the composer of the greatest national anthem in the world. Arise, O compatriot, the Nigerian anthem. The lyrics are people-centered, inspiring, noble, prayerful, visionary, prophetic, and indeed very divine. However, Nigeria today is the very opposite of our national anthem. Our leaders are nothing close to what our anthem stands for, as they lack love, commitment to services, and promote disunity. Our youth are totally lost from the path of truth and honesty. Our national anthem is a blueprint to the achievement of a great future of Nigeria, but a lot of our leaders and youth don't even know the words. I hereby recommend we all take time to ponder on the lyrics of our national anthem and have a reflection of our nation. Happy, sober independence. That's from Alexander Alassa.
Very profound there. We have time for one more. This one is from Yemi, who says, my support and prayers for our president, that as a citizen, I'm going through a lot, yet I believe in you. That even has, well, this is very, very complex. I think I'll go to the next one. Pastor Law Alpha Cross says, government is expected to deploy last-minute workable measures to dissuade the proposed strike action from the organized labor. If the strike happens, Nigerians will suffer more. And that ends, our reading of your tweets and messages this morning. We thank you very much. And perhaps in response to your concerns, the president said yesterday, I am different. I am not one to build our national patrimony on mud. So we'll be holding him to account in the coming days and years, on those words. We thank you very much for your time on the program today. God bless Nigeria. I am Bukola Koka.
I'm Nell Tagwe. Thank you for letting us be a part of your morning. Goodbye.